And from Merseyside to Thameside, Derek Hatton joins us now. Welcome to This Week.
Thanks, Andrew.
Twice in 1 week, guys.
People will be talking.
I know, and they are talking already. Do you really think Willie Walsh is out to break the union, 1980s style?
I haven't been privileged to be in part of those meetings, but certainly from what I hear of people, the way you look at it, the way his attitude is, the way every single compromise that's been talked about has been thrown out, I think that he's got it in his head that he's going to, that he really wants to break the union. I think that's the attitude that he's got. And I think because he has that attitude, and it does throw up the memories of the way Thatcher behaved in the 80s and others, and the fact that the way in which the Unite are understandably and rightly so, defending their members against that. I think that then leads to the likes of, Charlie Whelan and Militant Tenzi and all the rest of it. And I think it's more that than substance.
Do you see any echoes of the 1980s, Michael?
No, not really. I mean, I think British Airways is in the kind of vanguard of what's going to happen to all of us. British Airways is facing up to the effects of the recession. After the election, the government, whatever it is going to have to face up to the effects of the recession. And the kind of reduction in people's conditions that we're seeing in British Airways is going to be a reduction in conditions that we're going to see all the way through the British public. I guess the hark back to the 1980s, Derek's absolutely right that the Labour Party has always been funded by trade unions. But a lot of people thought during the era of Blair that Labour had emancipated itself from the trade unions. It found other ways of financing itself. But in the end, because most of the business donors have dropped away, it finds itself very dependent on the trade unions again, but more than that, very dependent on one trade union. I mean, I don't think it's ever been as dependent on one trade union, Unite, now, as it has ever been before.
That's right, true. The other trade unions, there's about 5 other trade unions that contribute quite significantly.
But there's been a huge amalgamation, hasn't there?
There's 3.5 million. I mean, of course there's more from Unite, because Unite is now 2 big unions.
I'm sorry, Dexy, can I just say, a lot of this analogy between now and the winter of discontent is absolute nonsense. First of all, the trade unions, in political terms, have never had less influence in the Labour Party.
But the analogy is not with the winter of discontent.
Or with the 80s.
That was pre-Thatcher. The analogy that Derek was raising was with the 80s, when the government decided to cut the unions down in size.
Remains.
You don't think that's the case?
No, I'll come to
You're being pretty militant yourself now, aren't you?
Darling. The unions have never had less influence in the Labour Party. That's the first thing. People talk about union-sponsored MPs. None of those MPs actually vote for union policies. As far as Unite and Charlie Whelan is concerned,
tell us about that.
Charlie Whelan is a big-mouthed, glorified bag carrier for Gordon Brown. That's what he was. That's, in effect, his value to Unite. The idea that Charlie Whelan is some mastermind driving Unite. First of all, Unite is 2 unions. There is no love lost between the factions in Unite.
No, the 2 leaders won't appear in the same studio.
Thank you.
We have to interview them separately, Derek.
I can believe it. Well, TNG and Amicus were always 2 very different unions anyway.
What made up the Unite. And that included the old engineering union as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
They used to hate each other.
Absolutely.
Very different unions. So it's not some great conspiracy.
Diane, you made the point that the Tories ought to be making much better than the Tories are making it. The point is that he's a big-mouthed bag carrier for Gordon Brown.
Yeah, well, Unite repeats that, but it's true.
No, but it's true, isn't it? And, I mean, that is the point. Here is a union that's about to cripple this airline, and who happens to be a key figure in it?
A
big-mouthed bag carrier for Gordon Brown.
If you knew Charlie Whelan, you would know that Charlie... Well, let's be careful about the laws of libel. Charlie Whelan is not directing some big conspiracy in Unite. That's what I'm saying.
In fact, the reality is he's got very little influence in Unite. Very little influence in Unite.
Will we not? I mean, as you look at certain seats that have come up in Labour, seats that Labour could still win even if they lost the election, Unite has managed to get its candidates into some of these seats. I mean, it's even managed to get...
They don't have candidates. When you say they have
even got Harriet Harman's husband through in an all-women shortlist.
I think that had far less to do with Unite and far more to do with other things.
Have to have an operation. Aren't we going to end up with a lot of Unite? Unite will become more important post the election within the Labour Party.
I
think, honestly, it's great journalist stuff and it's great for the show, but in real terms, it's nowhere near the truth.
At least one of those Unite people that people are claiming Charlie Whelan got in. Charlie Whelan hates him. It's got nothing to do with Charlie Whelan.
If it's got nothing to do with Charlie Whelan, could you stop being obsessed with him and don't mention his name again?
I just want to kill it.
Or his characteristics.
I just want to kill it.
Explain the timing. This is bizarre timing for a union that wants a Labour government to be returned. Why would you choose the timing
You
now?
have to remember that Unite is not some coordinated conspiracy. This is just the kind of ebb and flow of trade unionism. The truth is, I think it is right, actually, that they want to break the unions in here. They feel they have to.
I was going to say, is it more the other way round? It's not that Unite have brought it to the table, the issue. It's actually Willie Walsh that's brought it to the table. And that is and that's what makes me more convinced that there's conspiracy.
Can I mention somebody
No.
who's not been mentioned since the introduction, which is the passenger? The passengers are 100% on the management side. Because there was the abortive strike at Christmas, which would have ruined so many people's holidays, for which they saved up for a long, long period, because people then discovered that the BA staff are paid much more than the Virgin staff, because they then discovered that the Gatwick lot are happy to accept the conditions that the Heathrow lot are refusing to accept, they can't see it as the crushing of a union. Nobody's going to buy that now.
I'm not actually sure you're right about that. And it's great stuff to throw out. And certainly if I was in your position, or I was a Tory, I would say exactly the same thing, because it sounds fabulous. But the reality is, I don't believe for 1 second that all the passengers are against them. The funny thing about it is, when something like this happens, it's amazing that people who are having second thoughts about the Labour Party, they suddenly go back to their roots and back to their real feelings, and they start thinking, hang on a minute, this really is now becoming conflict between the Willie Walsh setup and the Tories, I think, versus the trade union and Labour. And people go back to their roots in that situation, Michael.
We're not talking about, horny-handed sons. We're talking about air stewardesses. And every ballot, the union has got 90%. The public understands air stewardesses aren't going out on strike
regardless of all
lightly.
that, is this still a gift to Cameron and the Tories?
No.
Yeah, potentially.
I was asking him.
Potentially. They have to make a better fist of it than they've made so far, because I rather agree with Derek on this point, that the analogy is not with militant. And the other day they had some rather long-winded phrase about nostalgia to the 1970s. What they want to say is, Unite funds the Labour Party £11 million. Unite has this figure, Charlie wheeling it. Unite is about to ruin this airline. This is nostalgic of the 1970s. This is a bloody scandal. That's what they ought to be saying.
It is
a scandal.
Is Cameron right to be encouring strike breakers and crossing picket lines?
Absolutely.
He's wrong, though, to give
Keep the airline flying.
He's
Was
wrong.
Gordon Brown right to be seen to be on the management side?
Gordon Brown has backed the management in every dispute. That's what I'm saying. It's in 10 years.
That's right.
We are not a union-dominated party.
That's the irony. That's the irony. I mean, tonight you had, on Questions Time, you had Lansley actually virtually saying there should be no more strikes in Britain ever. He actually sat there and said that. The fact that 90% of a group of workers can say we want it, he says that they don't. And I think he revealed an awful lot tonight. And I think that what is happening, although you can't compare it to the 80s in terms of the trade union power or militancy and everything else, I think what is starting to happen now, and I think Michael's dead right, I think it's partly because of the economic situation, you're starting to get that split again, the us and them, the workers and the boss are starting to see that again.
Which recessions can exacerbate.
I think you're going to see far, far more of that.
Well,
By the way, Andrew, you've had Derek on twice this week. Can we have him on all the time, all the way through the lecture room? Derek, we want you on telly all the time.
I don't think he's got your party's best interest at stake here, Derek. I think that's a trap he's setting. He does that often. He's a Tory, remember that.
I forgot that, yeah.
Will there be a strike or won't they, briefly? You say yes, Michael?
No.
Diane? You say no?
Really?
Oh, really? What do you think, Derek?
I think there probably will be. I just can't see at the moment that any of the stuff that's been put forward before is going to get accepted by Willie Walsh. The only thing that would make me think differently is if actually people are starting to see this is not going to do anyone any good, and he's getting pressure brought to bear on him.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a strike, I guess. Though I'll be told in 10 minutes there won't be because something's happened. But I think there'll be a strike, but it might not last for long.
That's right.
Because when the strike starts, that's when heads have to be knocked together.
Right. I think
Derry, good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Great
Thanks,
to see you,
Diane.
Derek.
Now, no sneaking off to bed, because coming up, pop sensation Craig David is talking political fairy tales. And backed by popular demand, the This Week quiz.